These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. One of these days these boots are gonna walk all over you.
Hey y'all! I want to give some background and context before reading this no contact letter. I typed, printed, and mailed this to my flesh oven after she denied being home for the worst abuse event of my childhood. My therapist said that he put this event on the same level as a rape in terms of trauma, psychological damage, and betrayal. My sperm donor, and please fast forward a little bit if you do not want to hear what happened. It is quite triggering. My sperm donor picked me up from my upper arms from behind, and I can't really do it like this. I was around 90 pounds, and you see how skinny I am now. I'm in my 40s, and I still only weigh 125 to 130 pounds. So you can see how small I was, even though I was fairly tall. I've always been fairly tall for my age, and now I'm on the lower end of tall average. I think I'm tall average tall or whatever, like 5'7", 5'8". I say 5'7.5" because I'm a math nerd, but we'll let that go. But at the time, I'm very skinny, very light. And so he picks me up from my upper arms from behind, and he essentially throws me down on the floor. He still denied it years later. He said that he picked me up, and we were still arguing about it. My grandfather called one night thinking that, it's important to be connected to family, and I hadn't talked to him in years because of all that, and there were other things, obviously. But I hadn't talked to my father in years. I'd gotten in a fight with my mother, had moved in with my grandfather. My grandfather calls my father while he's drunk, well-meaning, thinking that, you got to have one of your parents in your life. And he found out that was wrong. So we got into a big fight on the phone, and he still denied it years later. He said that he picked me up and he sat me down. And then I responded asking him why I had back problems for years after that. So my grandfather realized that he was wrong, and he apologized for calling my father, and realized that, no, I did not need to be in contact with my father. My grandfather has since passed away, and again, my grandparents were the only people who actually acted like they loved me, other than my father, before he became a worse and worse and worse and worse alcoholic. And, again, he was a very damaged person, but I still think that he was the one that cared for me more as an infant and as a young child than my mother. So anyway, and that night he was drinking. So obviously he used to get blackout drunk. And so he probably didn't, knowing him, he didn't remember it. But anyway, that was his reality. He's gone now. I don't have to worry about ever running into my father again. At the age of 40, I brought this up with my crappy mom. And she said, honey, I was at college. And that essentially set everything off, including my complex PTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is what you get when you grow up living in a war zone. She was trying to gaslight me. When it happened, it was a Sunday night. The college was closed on Sundays. Plus, she made a joke at my expense at my grandparents' house in front of my grandparent, my aunts, my cousins, about how funny I looked flying through the air. Now, how would she know what I looked like if she wasn't there? I mean, come on. A side note, when she made fun of me, she only apologized after my grandfather confronted her about it. She snuck up to me outside of my grandparents' home later on that day and told me that Granddaddy had told her that what she did wasn't okay. But she didn't say anything in front of everyone else who she had humiliated me in front of. So let me just say, I've hated that bitch since around that time and told her to her face many times as a young teenager and growing up, and after that, I figured out what she was. There were some other incidences that I need to let y'all know about, but the biggest part of my anger and rage towards her was her not protecting me, but also not letting me speak out. She never let me testify in court or give a victim statement, so my father's abuse was never on the record, especially that incident. I fought with her about this at the age of 12. I begged her to let me talk to the judge at 12 because my dad was given custody every other weekend. I was smart enough to keep checking his drinks for the smell of alcohol, though. And when I smelled it, I told her about it, and she actually reported that. But technically, I saved myself and my sister from having to be around him. She never did shit to protect me from him. And I have had some EMDR therapy within the last couple of years that has helped me not be so reactive to this event. Otherwise, I would probably be crying right now. I'm still angry about it, but I should be. I should be angry because when you're gaslit like that, it's not fair. It's really not fair. But that's why I can talk about it now without having like a super emotional flashback or reaction like I used to. Especially after she kicked off my CPTSD. It was really hard to talk about that because I would get really upset. My voice would go really high. I would start crying. It was. But EMDR does help, I will say. I just want to add, too, that there is a note to my stepdad at the end of this letter because he's also emotionally immature like my mother and loves to talk shit about me not being grateful. It felt good to call him out on his bullshit, too. He had a son with a drug addict. My stepbrother, who has never been able to take care of himself. They are stuck taking care of him because neither of his two wives wanted to do the job anymore. And now he has children that he can't take care of on his own. But I digress. I have had to send this letter 2 times because, of course, she didn't read it the first time. I received a birthday card about 2 Decembers ago, and it sent me into an emotional flashback. I was not expecting it. I do have the mail scan stuff, and I am guessing that it was one of the ones that said, "This piece of mail cannot be scanned." I was by myself, and usually my partner was checking the mail at the time. We were still together. He would actually go check the mail because he was the one going in and out of the house more. I worked from home. So he was on a flight, so I had no way to get into contact with him. I walked up to the mailbox, pulled out the mail, started going through it, saw it, and the rage just hit. I didn't even open it. It immediately threw me into an emotional flashback. I took the letter, walked back to my house in a seething rage very quickly, laid the letter down, wrote on it. On the front it says, "Horrible enabler mother. Return to sender, horrible enabler mother. Return to horrible enabler mother." And then on the back it says, "No Nazi mail wanted, no anti-women mail wanted. You are a bad person." Then I sent the letter back. Then I resent this letter I'm reading now with the section about the restraining order not contacting me or anyone again highlighted. And I made sure to send that one certified mail with second notice written on the front of it or at the top of it. I made sure to get it requiring a signature. Yeah, so if she ever contacts me again, I will be filing a no contact order. So again, I've removed all of the names. It actually just had her first names. Dear Crappy Mom, no matter how successful I have been in spite of you, you ruined my life. The only reason I am so successful is because I used work and school to run away from the horrible childhood you put me through. You're my mother by birth only. You never gave a shit about me and swept my abuse under the rug. After my sperm donor slammed me on the ground when I was in 6th grade, you didn't take me to the doctor for my back until it went out in 9th grade. You didn't call the police, and I was forced to spend time with him after that, with no protection. You told people at my school not to report it. That wasn't the first abuse. You never protected me from sperm donor, and you abused me as well. You let your child grow up in a prisoner of war situation and were complicit in hiding the abuse. Now I am physically and mentally broken because of you. I'm just going to say, side note, writing this, I was very upset at the time. Again, I've had EMDR therapy, so that's why I'm very calm reading this now. I'll go back to the letter. You have no right to ever give me advice or tell me how to live my life. You always put me last, behind the golden child sister, my stepbrother, stepdad, sperm donor, and yourself. You chose church over me. You chose your reputation over me. You made my abuse a joke in front of several people important to me as a child and never apologized in front of them, only to me, which still left me with shame and embarrassment for things I didn't have control over. You always wondered why I only asked for help when there was nowhere else to go, and sometimes not even then. It was because I could never trust you to protect me. You called the cops on a child when I was acting out because of your bad parenting or because I wanted to get away from you. You never called the cops on sperm donor. You sat in the room while he beat us with belts, his hands, or switches, which you would also do. You sat in the room while he duct taped mine and my sister's hands together and duct taped our mouths and made us sit there until we stopped crying. He would yell and scream in our faces, and you just watched. In my eyes, my abuser always meant more to you than I did. I chewed my fingernails down to my cuticles and then chewed my cuticles bloody in the first grade, and you couldn't even figure it out then. Once we left my sperm donor, you were so detrimentally overprotective of me to try to make up for this. I didn't have a real life in middle school or high school. You set me up to get in relationships with abusive people, like my ex-best friend who physically attacked me when I was sick. You set me up to get into an abusive relationship where I was almost killed twice. Unlike you, I was smart enough not to have children with this man. I thank myself every day that I made a decision you couldn't make. Your tickle torture screwed up my physical boundaries, and I can never relax or enjoy relaxing activities that most people do. You parentified me. I had to become an adult as a child and listen to your woes when I was a child. I was responsible for another human, my sister, as a child. I was also responsible for myself as a child. You taught me not to need you. You have even voted against my best interests as a woman my whole life. You would rather me die or get tied to an abusive man by being forced to give birth than have the freedom I do. You voted to keep me poor. You voted to make sure that I got no assistance and had to come to you for help. You are nothing but a part of the GOP Nazi wannabe cult that just wants people to suffer, and you are cruel and wrong for it. You are a racist and a bigot. It's a good thing guns were banned when I was in high school after Columbine and while I was working in the schools, because you voted for people who allowed the schools to become nothing but shooting ranges. I'm glad I grew up nothing like you. My intelligence and logic surpassed yours when I was in elementary school. I have done more for the world in my 40 years than you have done in your 61. You don't get to take any credit for that. My world is better off without you and people like you. Remove me from any of your paperwork because I don't want anything to do with you. I don't even want to come to your funeral. I'm finished with feeling like I have an obligation because you did what animals do all the time. Hell, at least most mammals try to protect their young from attacks, but you didn't. People like you shouldn't be allowed to have children. You made the choice to have a child with an abusive alcoholic and stay there until I was 12. I did everything I could to get away, but had no power. You could have saved me long before it took a disabling attack to wake you up, but you didn't. I had to save myself from you. Don't call, write, ask my sister or any other family members, my partner, and his family about me again. If you do, I will take out a restraining order for harassment. We're done for good. You broke my heart too many times, putting everyone else in this world above me. You always called me your baby, like I was a possession. Well, not anymore. This woman woke up a long time ago to your bullshit. Sayonara. And P.S. Stepdad has no right to talk bad about me when he did the same thing to his son who can't even be an independent adult. And that's it. It's missing many incidents that I'm beginning to address on this channel, and I appreciate those of you who have offered support. And I want to let you know that I'm here to support you too. I try to help as much as I can in the Estranged Adult Kids subreddit, but the biggest thing to remember is that we can't reparent our parents, and they are never going to change. Even though many of us were already our parents' parents once. So everyone say it with me. We can't reparent our parents. This was a rough video to watch, I'm sure. So I'm going to take some time to care for myself and be gentle with myself. I hope you do as well. Love y'all. Talk to you soon.
Are you ready, Boots? Start walking.